Did you know that over 2 million people currently living in Australia could soon be denied citizenship even after years of living, working, and paying taxes? That's not a wild theory. It's a very real possibility under proposed changes to Australia's citizenship rules in 2025. Families could be split, careers could be disrupted, and for some, the Australian dream might be ripped away overnight. These new policies aren't just small tweaks, they're shaping up to be some of the most restrictive and controversial changes in decades. Tighter language tests, social media background checks, and even retroactive disqualifications are all on the table. Imagine being told that a post you made 5 years ago now disqualifies you from becoming a citizen. It sounds absurd, but it might be closer than you think. So what exactly is happening? And more importantly, how could it affect you, your family, or people you know? In this video, we'll break down the 10 biggest reasons why the 2025 rule change could place millions at risk, and why now is the time to pay attention. Number 1. Stricter residency requirements could leave thousands in limbo. For years, the path to Australian citizenship has required permanent residents to live in the country for 4 years, including 1 year as a permanent resident. But under the proposed 2025 changes, this period could double to 8 years, making it dramatically harder and slower for migrants to secure full citizenship rights. This shift may sound technical, but its real-world impact is anything but. Imagine spending nearly a decade in a country, contributing to the economy, paying taxes, and building a life, only to remain in a state of uncertainty, denied the basic security that citizenship provides. The government argues that longer residency requirements will promote better integration and national loyalty. However, critics warn this move would punish law-abiding migrants, particularly international students and skilled workers who already invest years of their lives and thousands of dollars into settling in Australia. Many of these individuals are already filling workforce gaps in healthcare, education, and tech sectors Australia desperately needs to sustain. Delaying their access to citizenship not only limits their rights, but may push them to seek more welcoming countries like Canada or the UK, causing a potential brain drain Australia can't afford. This proposed change could also create a permanent underclass of residents, people who live and work in Australia but lack the right to vote, access government jobs, or feel truly belonging. For families with children, it adds further stress. Kids born in Australia may become citizens, while their parents remain in limbo. The emotional toll of living in a country without full legal recognition is profound. And if this change becomes law, thousands could find themselves trapped in a waiting game that may never end. Number 2. Dual citizenship at risk, a hard choice no one saw coming. One of the most alarming parts of the 2025 rule changes is the possibility that Australia may tighten or restrict dual citizenship, forcing many migrants to choose between their Australian identity and their country of birth. For millions of residents, this isn't just a legal decision, it's a deeply personal one. Imagine being told that in order to stay in Australia permanently, you may have to give up your original nationality, the place you were born, the passport tied to your family, your childhood, and your cultural roots. It's an emotional crossroads that most never imagined they'd face in a modern, multicultural nation like Australia. Experts warn that these proposed changes could disproportionately impact migrants from countries that don't allow dual citizenship, such as India, China, Japan, and several Middle Eastern nations. This means entire communities may feel the pressure to sacrifice one identity to secure another. For parents, the situation becomes even more complicated. Should they give up their original citizenship for the sake of their children's future here? And what happens to families who want to maintain ties with their home country, visiting aging parents, inheriting property, or handling legal matters abroad? A forced renunciation could disrupt all of that, creating emotional and practical burdens that extend far beyond paperwork. The most unsettling part is the long-term division this could create. If dual citizenship rights shrink or vanish, Australia risks forming a society where two groups of residents live side by side, those able to fully access the privileges of citizenship and those forced to choose between two worlds. This choice can tear families apart emotionally, create resentment, and damage the very idea of multicultural unity that Australia prides itself on. If these changes move forward, it won't just be about passports, it will be about identity, belonging, and the future of millions. Number 3. Language and values. Tests may quietly shut people out. One of the most controversial proposed changes for 2025 is the tightening of English language tests and the introduction of a more complex Australian values assessment. On paper, it sounds reasonable after all. Every country wants citizens who understand its culture. But dig deeper, and you'll see a policy that could quietly exclude thousands, especially people from non-English speaking backgrounds who have lived in Australia for years and already contribute to society in meaningful ways. The new system could demand a much higher level of English proficiency than before, not just conversational, but potentially academic-level fluency. Combine that with a mandatory interview or written test about Australian values, a term critics say is vague and politically loaded, and you have a gatekeeping mechanism that many fear is less about integration and more about filtering. Think of older migrants, refugees, or even skilled workers who speak English well enough for daily life but may struggle under formal, exam-style pressure. Should someone's right to citizenship be denied just because they can't write a perfect essay in English? These proposed tests raise serious concerns about fairness and intent. Australia has always been a multicultural nation, built by people from all backgrounds. Introducing harder tests risks sending the message that only certain kinds of migrants are welcome, those who can speak like locals and fit a narrow definition of Australian. In reality, true national values are about inclusion, diversity, and respect, not just ticking boxes on a form. If passed, these changes could turn citizenship from a celebration of belonging into a high-stakes exam, where many lose not because they don't love Australia, but because they don't speak or write the right way. Number 4. Surveillance and social media checks. Your online life could cost you citizenship. In a move raising serious concerns about privacy and freedom of expression, the 2025 citizenship proposals include new powers for government agencies to scrutinize your digital footprint, including social media activity, online comments, and even private messages. That's right, what you post, like, or share on platforms like Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, or even TikTok could be used to judge your character during the citizenship approval process. Suddenly, a sarcastic post, political opinion, or a joke taken out of context could become a red flag. Supporters claim these checks are meant to protect national security and ensure applicants uphold Australian values. But critics argue it opens the door to mass surveillance, bias, and even misuse of power. How exactly do authorities decide what kind of online behavior is un-Australian? Will peaceful criticism of government policy, cultural debates, or activism be seen as threatening? In a country that values freedom of speech, this approach feels dangerously close to thought policing, especially when applied to people who don't yet have the right to defend themselves as citizens. Even more worrying is the lack of transparency. Many applicants won't know what digital content is being reviewed or flagged, or even why their application was denied. And if this rule expands in the future, it might not just apply to new applicants. It could affect current permanent residents, visa holders, or even those already approved for citizenship but awaiting final approval. It sends a chilling message. Your digital life is being watched, and one wrong move, even years ago, could ruin your future in Australia. For a country that prides itself on fairness, this kind of quiet surveillance feels like a dangerous step backward. Number 5. Retroactive disqualifications. Losing citizenship for your past. Perhaps the most frightening part of the 2025 rule changes is the possibility of retroactive disqualification, meaning even if you've already applied for citizenship or have been approved in principle, you could still be denied based on your past behavior, no matter how minor or long ago it occurred. This includes old legal issues, misstatements on applications, or even vague moral conduct concerns. In some cases, authorities may even consider acts committed overseas before you ever arrived in Australia. The result? You could lose your pathway to citizenship, or worse, have your existing citizenship revoked. Supporters argue that this ensures only high-character individuals become Australian citizens. But critics point out that it creates a system where no one feels truly secure, even after years of obeying the law and contributing to society. What if you forgot to declare a petty offense from your teenage years? What if your circumstances have changed? And past mistakes no longer reflect who you are today. For many migrants, especially refugees or survivors of conflict, the past is complicated, and punishing them for it today feels deeply unjust. More dangerously, retroactive rules set a troubling precedent. If citizenship is no longer permanent or stable, what does it actually mean to belong? This policy blurs the line between citizen and outsider, creating a climate of fear and uncertainty, especially for those who believed they were finally safe. In a legal sense, it's like moving the goalposts after the game has ended. In a human sense, it's devastating, stripping people of security, identity, and dignity based on events they may not even remember. If passed, this rule could become a silent weapon, used to deny citizenship not based on who you are now, but who you once were. If this video opened your eyes, let us know in the comments which of these changes shocked you the most. We pour countless hours into crafting content that matters. So, if you found value here, please subscribe. It's just one click, but it means everything to us. Number 6. Bias against specific communities. A hidden threat to inclusion. One of the most disturbing undercurrents in the 2025 citizenship reforms is the growing concern that the changes may unfairly target certain communities, particularly migrants from non-Western backgrounds. While the official language of the policy appears neutral, many advocacy groups, legal experts, and human rights organizations have raised alarms about how these rules might be applied unevenly in practice. There's a growing fear that these changes could quietly embed racial or cultural bias into the very system meant to welcome new Australians. For example, community leaders report that applicants from Middle Eastern, South Asian, and African backgrounds are already facing longer processing times, tougher questioning, and stricter character assessments. Meanwhile, those from English-speaking or European countries seem to pass through the system with fewer obstacles. If this trend continues under the 2025 changes, it would create a dangerous reality where your ethnicity, religion, or country of origin can determine how smoothly your path to citizenship goes. This undermines the very principle of equality before the law. The consequences are more than just procedural. This kind of bias breeds distrust, resentment, and division. It sends a message to entire communities that they're not truly welcome, even if they've lived in Australia for decades, raised families, and contributed in every possible way. If citizenship becomes a filter to exclude rather than include, it damages the social fabric of the country. Australia has long celebrated its multicultural identity, but if these changes go ahead unchecked, that legacy could be replaced with suspicion, exclusion, and fear. And once that trust is broken, it's incredibly hard to rebuild. Citizenship should unite us, not divide us along invisible lines. Number 7. Economic impacts, driving away the talent Australia desperately needs. While most people think of citizenship as a legal or emotional issue, the proposed 2025 changes could also carry massive economic consequences, especially for Australia's skilled migration program. By extending the residency requirement and making the citizenship process more restrictive, Australia risks pushing away the very people who drive its economy forward: highly educated professionals, entrepreneurs, and workers in critical sectors like healthcare, technology, and engineering. Many of these individuals come to Australia with the hope of not just building a career, but building a life. They invest years into education, pay high visa fees, and contribute to the country's growth from day one. But if citizenship becomes a distant or uncertain goal locked behind new tests, stricter surveillance, and longer wait times, many may start looking elsewhere. Countries like Canada, New Zealand, and Germany are actively competing for global talent, offering faster, more welcoming paths to permanent settlement. Australia could fall behind in this global race, not because it lacks opportunity, but because it makes people feel unwanted. The long-term impact? A potential brain drain that leaves industries understaffed, innovation stalled, and communities struggling. Regional areas, which rely heavily on migrants to fill labor shortages, would be hit hardest. And the message being sent that skilled migrants are good enough to work, pay taxes, and support the economy, but not good enough to become citizens, is both demoralizing and dangerous. Citizenship should be a reward for contribution, not an impossible finish line. If Australia shuts the door too tightly, it may find itself not just short of citizens, but short of the talent, energy, and drive that have built its success. Number 8. Loss of political voice. Silencing the people who keep the country running. One of the most overlooked but powerful consequences of the 2025 citizenship changes is the impact on political participation. With longer waiting periods and tougher eligibility rules, millions of long-term residents could be left unable to vote despite living, working, and paying taxes in Australia for years. These are people who follow the news, care about the country's future, and are deeply involved in their communities, yet they are completely voiceless when it comes to choosing the leaders who shape national policies. Currently, only Australian citizens can vote in federal elections, and these new barriers could delay that right by up to 8 years or more. That's 8 years of living under laws and governments you had no say in electing. Imagine raising your children in a country, relying on its healthcare system, contributing to its economy, yet being locked out of the democratic process simply because your citizenship status is pending. This creates a growing class of invisible Australians present in every way except politically. Worse, this disconnect can lead to underrepresentation of migrant communities in national conversations. When thousands, even millions, are excluded from voting, their issues are easily ignored by politicians. Policies that affect education, immigration, housing, and wages are debated and decided without input from those most affected. Democracy thrives on inclusion, not exclusion. And if Australia continues down this path, it risks creating a system where the very people who keep the country running, nurses, teachers, engineers, small business owners, are denied the most basic democratic right, a voice. Citizenship should empower people to shape their future, not silence them during their most productive years. Number 9. Family separation issues. when citizenship becomes a wall, not a bridge. One of the most heartbreaking effects of the 2025 rule changes is how they may tear families apart, not through deportation, but through bureaucratic walls that block family reunification. Under the new policies, it could become much harder and slower for permanent residents and provisional visa holders to sponsor family members, including spouses, children, parents, and siblings. The reason? Delayed access to citizenship and stricter eligibility for family sponsorship programs tied to citizenship status. For many migrants, becoming a citizen isn't just about themselves, it's about bringing their families together. It's about reuniting with elderly parents who need care, or finally bringing a spouse or child who's been waiting overseas for years. But with longer waiting periods, added screening, and more hurdles to meet financial stability or character requirements, families are being forced to live in limbo, often across continents. Real stories are emerging of parents missing their child's first steps, siblings growing up apart, and grandparents never meeting their grandchildren, all because of bureaucratic delays that didn't exist before. These are not abstract numbers, they are real people dealing with real heartbreak. For a country that claims to value family and community, these policies threaten to create emotional exile. People who work hard and follow the rules deserve a chance to build their lives with the people they love, not face endless separation due to technicalities. Citizenship should be a bridge to family, not a wall. If the 2025 changes go through as proposed, they won't just affect individuals, they'll affect generations, breaking the very bonds that help communities thrive. Number 10. A divided society, creating second-class Australians. At the heart of the 2025 citizenship rule changes lies a deeper, more troubling issue, the creation of a two-tiered society. As the path to citizenship becomes longer, more complex, and harder to access, Australia risks building a population made up of official citizens with full rights and long-term residents who live under the same sky but with fewer freedoms, less security, and limited recognition. These individuals work the same jobs, pay the same taxes, raise their children in the same schools, yet remain stuck in a system that never fully lets them in. Over time, this division can erode social trust. When people feel they are treated as permanent outsiders, they may disengage from civic life, stop participating in their communities, or even begin to feel resentment toward the very country they once admired. It creates a sense of exclusion that no matter how much you contribute, speak the language, or follow the rules, you'll always be seen as not quite Australian enough. For a multicultural nation that prides itself on fairness and equality, this shift is not only dangerous, it's deeply un-Australian. More than a policy problem, this is a social and moral crisis. Citizenship is not just paperwork. It's a statement of belonging, inclusion, and trust. When it becomes something only a select group can realistically attain, we lose more than just numbers. We lose connection, compassion, and community spirit. If the 2025 changes are passed as proposed, Australia could become a nation where your worth is measured not by who you are or what you give, but by whether you meet an ever-changing checklist, and that's not the kind of future most Australians want to build. The proposed changes to Australia's citizenship rules in 2025 aren't just policy updates. They represent a fundamental shift in who gets to belong and how. From longer waiting times and stricter language tests, to surveillance, retroactive disqualifications, and the silent erosion of family unity, these aren't small adjustments. They're major obstacles that could affect millions of lives, creating fear, division, and uncertainty in a country that has long been seen as a beacon of opportunity and multicultural pride. What's most concerning is that many people still don't know these changes are coming. They go to work, raise their families, contribute to their communities, unaware that their future as Australians could soon be hanging by a thread. And for those who are aware, the question becomes deeply personal. Will I still be allowed to stay? Will I ever truly belong? These aren't abstract worries, they're daily realities for people who call this country home. As we look ahead, one thing is clear. Now is the time to stay informed, speak up, and share these stories. Citizenship should never be used as a weapon to divide, delay, or exclude. It should be a path toward unity, inclusion, and shared purpose. Because in the end, it's not just about who holds a passport, it's about who gets to be part of the Australian story. And that story should never leave people behind.